there. Jason, what's going on, man?
Not much, not much. I guess I'll be the Luke Whisperer,
Well, what they call me on here. They call me Captain Saver Luke, as always.
Yeah, and me, I'm just, an extension of Luke and extension of the Lakers and here to further the anti-King Laker agenda. You know me,
Yeah, well, I mean, look.
I've heard it all at this point, I've heard it all. Even though even though Vlade was a Laker too, I guess that was part of our plan, our grand plan to hold the Kings down.
So let me ask you then.
Perfectly executed.
Perfect. They didn't miss. They didn't miss. That's for sure. When somebody asks the question, what does Luke Walton want? Do you have an answer for that?
Offensively, he wants a team that plays fast, that gets up and down the court, that shares the ball, that can attack from multiple angles. The problem with that right now, or at least back to last season, your only guy who could really, really attack was De'Aaron. And, in certain situations, Harrison, but you didn't have a situation where you had multiple guys who could get into the paint, kick out, and kind of keep that thing going. But even with all that said, offensively, they're fine last year. And defensively, he wants a team that's tough, a team that can switch 1 through 5, and especially in clutch, late game situations, he wants to be switchable. He wants a team that can kind of contain the perimeter, protect the paint, protect the rim, just kind of a solid a solid defensive, concept in that regard. Nowadays, most teams, you got to be switchable, especially late, which is what made Rashawn Holmes so valuable as opposed to playing Marvin Bagley late in games, because Rashawn, you could switch him, 1 through 4, 1 through 5. And if he got caught on a guy in the perimeter, you knew that he knew what to do to kind of hold his own. So ideally, that's what you like. Part of that is coaching. Part of that is getting some players that can actually do that, and not be in a situation, at least on the defensive end, where you've got 2 or 3 guys you're trying to hide. And offensively, I think they can be fine, what they want to do. But part of the problem offensively was that when you're not getting any stops, it's a lot harder to run when you're giving up 50-plus points in the paint every night, because you're taking the ball out from under the hoop. You're not getting those long rebounds and getting out.
Yeah.
Do you think they did enough this offseason to do that defensively, to improve and be more switchable and kind of be more versatile?
Yeah, I think they should be better. I mean, it's not going to make them the bad boy Pistons, but
sure.
I mean, I think it wasn't going to take much to get better from where they were last year. I think having Terrence, Davis all season is going to help them. I think having Mo Harkless all season will help them. Just having some guys who know what to do and know where to be. I mean, a lot of their problems, you watch them last year defensively, was guys look completely clueless. Like, what do I do? Or just even how Hassan Whiteside pointed out one time, hey, read the scouting report. There were times where you're watching and think, I mean, there were times you go, okay, everyone knows he likes to do this, right? And you watch the game and you're like, they don't know that?
Right.
As Reggie Evans once said years ago, if you play 2K, there's some things you should know about your opponent. And there were times where you watch him and go, they don't know he likes to do that. We all know he's going to do that.
Yeah.
So just basic things like that. That's where Mo helped them. Not that Mo came in and was, prime Kawhi on the perimeter. He just knew where to be.
Right.
And so much as that, that helped. I mean, losing DeLon doesn't help that, but I think Davion can fill in that role, even as a rookie, and help them as far as ball pressure, helping them contain the perimeter. So they definitely should be better. And I think if they can, I mean, it's crazy as it sounds, I think in the last 15 years, they've only cracked the top 20, like in overall defense efficiency once. And that was Luke's first year.
Wow.
They haven't been, I mean, they've been terrible for 15 years, which explains why you don't make the playoffs. So if they can get into the top 20, I mean, that's not great, but that at least gets them closer to at least being maybe just average.
Right.
To me, if they can get around average, they can crack the top 10 in the West. But, because even with one of the worst defense I've ever seen in my life, they still were right there at the end somehow, and if you just, you cancel out one of those 9-game losing streaks and go 3-6, they're on their way, they're on their way to Memphis maybe to play them and get a chance to, in the play-in. So we'll see.
It's funny that you mentioned that that defensive team Luke's first year, because I remember when we were on the podcast up north, you know what I mean? I would talk about when he got the Bazemores and the Lens, and there was somebody else that was really, I think Harry stepped in and was playing good. I forgot who it was, but when he got those guys in there, they started to play a tough physical brand of defense, and they were just a tougher team. And it seemed like that, and they moved Buddy to the bench as well. And it seemed like that fit more so what he wanted the team to embody. And I had never heard the stat about the only time in the last 20 years that they were that high in defensive efficiency was that year, but it matched up with what we saw. And I look at that year and I look at, okay, he had guys that could defend the way he wanted to defend. And I don't see any reason why. I think they did that this year, in this offseason, and some of the moves they did at the deadline last year. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be in that top 20 with the way that Luke wants to play on the defensive end, and now having some of those horses be able to do that.
It can't be any worse. I mean, I hope they can't be any worse, but they shouldn't be able. They shouldn't be worse. I really do think Davion's going to play a big role in that. I'm not, and I think I wrote somewhere that if Davion gets their defense in the top 20, top 15, he should get Rookie of the Year. I don't care if he averages 2 points, because it would be that big of a miracle. But when I look at, just the effort he plays with on defense, if you get a guy like that out there on the court, he's going to make 4 other guys look really bad if they're not trying just as hard.
Well, exactly.
And I think that's what they've needed. They've needed some, I think Bays gave them a little bit of that when he was there, but you need that. You need that from one of your top guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Davion's going to be a top 7, top 8 guy in the rotation. And when you get that out there, you're going to look really silly if he's out there giving everything he's got defensively. And then you're back there kind of just doing one of those, oh, he got by me again. And as I talked to people who were with him at Baylor for a story I wrote, you kind of saw that he really, that effort that he gives, just whether it be his workouts, the way he plays defense, that rubbed off on everyone. They said it, he comes to a game just as prepared as a coach. And so, and so that rubs off on it. They said it helped everyone get better. And people down there keep telling me that he's a guy who's a culture changer. And he could, and I don't want to put all that on a rookie, but I think you saw a glimpse of it with Tyrese last year, how he came in, his leadership, his ability to connect guys. You saw that instantly. I think you'll see something similar with Davion defensively. And the fact that he can play a little offense. I mean, he's not just, I think somebody was saying before the draft, best case scenario, he's Patrick Beverly. I think he's going to be a better offensive player than Patrick Beverly. And when I watch him sometimes, I'm surprised I haven't typed or tweeted Donovan Mitchell when I watch him play. Just typically the way he's built. And, he wore 45 in college. I mean, if he wore 45 for the Kings, I might have typed Donovan about 15 times by now. And also kind of like Donovan, he's short for his position relative to other guys in the league.
Right.
But I think he's a guy who can come in and be a part of that change. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Just like I said, they can't be worse defensively. So just see what they do, see what De'Aaron does, what happens with the rest of the group, what happens with Marvin, Buddy, and all that, and even with Tristan Thompson being on the team, I think a lot of people assumed that he was going to get moved right away, and he didn't. And people I've talked to about Tristan say, if anything, he brings toughness, and he brings a level of professionalism in the locker room that some of those young guys need to see. And that's similar to what, another guy who played with Tristan, Amon Shumpert, brought. Just the kind of a level of veteran accountability, another voice in there where, they know he's won at the highest level. And he's maybe he's young enough to still to relate to those guys, but he's still Tristan's been almost 10 years now. It sounds crazy. Yeah. Because it feels like he'd be 40 years old at this point.
Is Tristan even 30 yet?
He might, because I think he's 30 or 31. I mean, and I was surprised when I looked that up. I'm like, he came in the league 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It seems like he's been around longer, but I think those type of guys can help them. And like I said, top 10 to me is a realistic goal. It's not crazy for them. I'm just curious to see what they do with it.
Mhm.
Can Tristan Thompson sing like Amon Shumpert? That remains to be seen.
I doubt it. I think if Tristan could, he'd have a mixtape out already. We'd all know about it. But I think the Kings
Great
have
point.
their quota on rappers on the roster with Marvin.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to have both of two of their bigs in the studio instead of working on their game.
Tristan has a deceptive voice. It's a lot. I thought it would be deeper. I'll just say that. You got to play. It kind of sounds like this. I was like, wait, what? Tristan Thompson?
I haven't heard him talk in a while. He might just have a Canadian accent still.
No, that's a good point. I want to stick on Davion Mitchell for a minute. Do you think that the De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton trio can close games, be effective enough on both ends of the floor to finish games effectively for the Kings?
I haven't seen them together, obviously, yet, but I think potentially you can, because you've got now 3 guys who can handle the ball. Another thing that I know Luke likes the idea of having multiple ball handlers. And you've got, I call him the mad scientist, Alvin Gentry over there too, who has plenty of experience of mixing and matching situations where you've got multiple ball handlers. And I think that can make a world of difference in a clutch situation, like in a simple thing like inbounding the ball. People would say, well, why is your point guard inbounding the ball? Let's say it's De'Aaron. Part of the thing is you got to have a good decision maker, but you have to have someone to throw the ball to who can also make a good decision.
Yeah.
And if you got other guys he can get the ball to, who can take the ball, make a good decision off the bounce, get into the paint, kick, get the ball moving, or as they say, put you in the blender. I think it only helps, long term. And that's not a bad trio to have closing a game. Tyrese, I saw him in Vegas. That's my first time seeing him in person. Crazy enough.
That's wild.
Yeah, it only took a year to actually meet him. But physically, you look at Tyrese, he's big enough to guard some bigger wings, and you would assume that. He's smart enough to know, that strength was a thing that he needed to work on in the offseason. You could tell he's worked on it. So, and De'Aaron, when he's locked in defensively, he can guard up a little bit too. So, we've seen late in games, I saw De'Aaron guard Julius Randle once. So he can guard up, and when he's locked in, De'Aaron can be an all NBA caliber defender. So I think if you put that together, and then you can say you go Harrison and Rashawn or whatever combo you want to go, that's switchable. You got multiple guys who can handle the ball, make plays. I think that Tyrese is a good 3-point shooter. I think Davion is showing he can possibly be one as well. Harrison can shoot the 3. Rashawn wants to shoot the 3 if they let him. So I think you've got the potential there late in games to have a lineup that can defend and still get offense.
Jason, I talked about this when this whole topic first came up. And at first, it sounds a little crazy. You got Fox, Davion, Tyrese Halliburton playing in the 3-guard lineup down the stretch. But I looked at the NBA Finals, and one of the things that I've said a number of different times is De'Aaron Fox, I need somebody in here. So not to say that he's a bad defender, but to hide him on defense, because that's what all the good teams do, right? Like all the good teams take their best offensive player and they put them on somebody in the corner so they don't have to guard. And it's always crazy when they're like, oh, De'Aaron, I need him to step up on the defensive end. He's giving you 27 points a night. He's giving 27 points a night and guarding Steph Curry to try and lock him up. Like, to take that next level, you want to get a good enough defensive game plan on the perimeter where you could hide him like the Hawks do Trae Young, or like the Grizzlies do John Morant. And you look at that 3-guard lineup possibly, and you look at the NBA Finals, and say the Kings are going up against Phoenix. It's not inconceivable that you have Davion on Chris Paul or Booker, Halliburton on the other guy, and De'Aaron Fox on Mikal Bridges. Like, it's not crazy. It's not like Mikal's going to start posting up De'Aaron Fox or anything like that. Or if you want Fox on Booker, whoever Davion's not guarding, put Halliburton on Mikal Bridges. Like, the way the game is played, you can do that 3-guard lineup regularly. Like, if you go up against a big team like the Lakers, like, yeah, that's tough, but there's 1-2 teams like the Lakers in the NBA right now with that type of size. So on a regular night, you could do the 3-guard lineup to close it out.
Yeah, I think here's the thing though about that as well. I hear what you're saying about, where you want to put De'Aaron, but for this team to be special, I think eventually, I don't mean special like a playoff team going to the finals next year, but the big picture, they expect De'Aaron to be a guy who can lock people up. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they want him to be a guy where you feel like, they want it to be a situation where if De'Aaron ends up on a Chris Paul, Devin, whoever he ends up, that guy's going to be in hell. Because De'Aaron's got the length, the quickness, to harass people. But but one of the reasons that they brought in Corey Joseph a couple of years ago was the idea that if you get a guy like that behind De'Aaron can give all he has to give on offense and defense. You can still play him off the ball to give him a break. And he also doesn't feel like he has to play 40 minutes to do that. So they definitely want De'Aaron to be that guy on defense too. I think in their minds, you could have 3 ball hawks out there. There's 3 guys who are out there just causing havoc, because one of the best Kings offenses is getting the steal and getting De'Aaron in the open floor. So they definitely want him to be a guy who can do that, but they also don't want it to be where De'Aaron has to chase the other team's point guard for 35, 40 minutes a night. There's a balance to it for sure. And you definitely want to be in situations where you can say, you know what, it's like, for this stretch, hey, Davion, you've got, you go up against Westbrook or you go against Steph for, a few series, of course, there are going to be cross matches and they won't be perfect every time, but you don't want it to be a situation where De'Aaron feels like, oh my God, I'm not on Steph. We're in so much trouble, so there's a balance to it. But I think for this team to be a playoff team or a top 10 team, should I say, I'm not going to jump playoffs with them yet, but say top 10.
Postseason.
Yeah, a postseason contender. De'Aaron's got to be one of them dudes. He's got to be a guy that at the end of the year, he's getting some all defense votes.
We saw him take a little bit of a step forward offensively last year. Do you think there's another level for him to get offensively?
Yeah, I mean, because he's still not a high clip, 3-point shooter yet. I mean, he had that second season where he shot about 38%, but for his career, he's closer to 30. But if he gets to 38, 40% shooting threes consistently, and we saw what happened when he had games where he was making the 3. You really can't guard him. What do you do with him if he's hitting 3? So I think that's the next level, and also just even being more of a playmaker. I mean, he does it already, but I think as that his game evolves, if he can be a guy that gets you 25, 27, and say instead of 7, 8 assists gets you 9 or 10 on a regular basis, that's another level he can take. And the one thing I ran into somebody in Vegas at Summer League, one of his old teammates, George Hill, and he said the one thing about De'Aaron is that De'Aaron has gotten better every year. He's not one of those guys where after that second year you go, okay, wow, that's who he is. He's definitely continued to get better. So I expect, I forget, was he 23? He's still not even old. It's just you've seen him so long, you can call, oh my God, he's still young. So I think there's definitely more he has in his game offensively, and I think defensively.
Hell, Jason, if he's shot, I'm not even asking him to be Mark Price, but if he shot 80% from the free throw line in that second half of the season, he got to like 75%, and that's when he got to like 27 points a night, right?
Yeah, that's another part of it too. Yeah, you can't have your point guard going 6 of 11 or whatever from the foul line.
Right.
He had nights where he looked like like you say, he looked like Mark Price. Another nights he looked completely looked like Ben Wallace or Ben Simmons up there. You'd be like, what is going on? It was just so wild. So, I mean, just the and the thing is, he can do it. We've seen him do it. It's just the consistency he has to get. And even De'Aaron would tell you that too. That's what I like about De'Aaron is that De'Aaron is not a guy who will tell you he's great when it's something that he's not great at. Like 2 years ago, he's telling me, I'm not enough of a leader. I've got to work on being more vocal. He's very aware of what he has to work on. And I'd be shocked if he came back and was shooting 68% from the line next season.
Got my main man Jason Jones here of The Athletic and of J Street Vibes. Don't let the media tell you anything different. We're coming back next year, Jason. We're coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's the summertime. We can chill, but
he's joining us here on D-Lo and KC. Jason, I don't think I've gotten your thoughts here. Is there anything that I can take away from the 2-time Summer League champion Sacramento Kings and what they did in Las Vegas?
take away as far as what? Like, besides the
Are they winning the
congratulations?
finals this year?
I mean, last time they won Summer League, a few months later they fired Michael Malone. So I'm always that guy who, you know, I'm like always ruining the good time. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it happened last time. They fired the coach.
They win what, 29 games or something that year?
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, okay, what's the history of teams that have won Summer League? I think eventually the Warriors won a championship with some of those guys. I think Draymond was on their Summer League championship team. But I'm pretty sure Draymond doesn't do an interview and drop that summer where they won Summer League and what it did for his career.
But I agree. The actual winning of Summer League, there's nothing to take from that. But a guy like Lewis King, obviously talked about Davion Mitchell, Jamias Ramsey, who I don't think will be in Sacramento much this year. But is there something the organization can build on the way those guys performed in that Summer League?
Oh, definitely. Like, you look at a guy like Lewis King, a guy who didn't have a reputation as a guy who can play defense. He played defense.
Mm-hmm.
You saw you got to see kind of the Davion effect on his teammates. You got to see why they like Jamias in the draft, about him being you look at him, you say at the very the floor of his potential, he can be a guy to get you 10, 15 off the bench.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're kind of the bare minimum. You look at that, you see that Robert Woodard physically looks the part, but you also see that what he needs to work on. What did Bobby say after one of his games? He's got to figure out what'll keep him in the league, and it's not dribbling. Like whatever it was like, yeah. So it's just
assessment there.
Hey, the one thing about Bobby is not going to give you the PC. Let me go look at the tape. He's not going to give you I have to go watch the tape and get back to you. No, he'll just tell you what he saw. And I think we all saw that. I think people want to see I remember guys get tweets. People would like, if Luke wants to win, why doesn't he play Robert Woodard? I'm like, well, Robert was injured, last season. He and Jamias dealt with injuries last season.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a real G League. They didn't have a training camp for all intents and purposes. I mean, there was so much going on. You see that you see physically some of the things he could eventually do, but he's a young player like a lot of those guys are. So I think there's a lot. You could take away those things. You could take away that you could see what Keita, what he might need to work on in terms of offensively. There was times he reminded me of Jason Thompson in the paint. Because when you get the ball, he'd put the ball on the floor before he went up. And, I'd be like, I remember JT doing that, and the coaches being like, no, take it and go straight up.
Right.
But Summer League is tough on big guys. Summer League is not people would say back in the day, Tim Duncan looked terrible in Summer League. Summer League is a guard's game.
Yeah.
So I think Nemias will do well once he gets to gets to Stockton. He'll get, they'll be able to run stuff for him, highlight him, get him better. So, in terms of their young, I think Lewis King is a guy that at some point I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the rotation, even if it's just for spot minutes, because say if Harrison or Mo gets hurt, they don't have much length on the wing left. Really don't have any at all. I know that they like to have Terrence, guard up. He can guard some bigger wings, but Lewis King is still a legit 6'7", with with some athleticism. A guy can also give you some offense out there as well. So I think you take all those things, and in all seriousness, you take those as building blocks going forward. And it gives Bobby a head start on working. Even though he had those guys during the season with Sacramento, they get used to Bobby as a coach, and they kind of get their hands on them, so to speak, and get that process rolling, so that maybe around, if it's January and someone does get hurt, Jamias is ready to step in and go, or Lewis is ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to go back real quick. We were talking a little bit about that 3-guard lineup with Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell. Buddy Hield's name noticeably absent from that group. Do you think he's on the roster by the end of this year?
By the end, I'd be surprised, just because of the number of guards, and I think he has a lot of value to a team that's trying to win. I think there's a reason why the Lakers were close to getting him. I think in a situation that doesn't highlight his weaknesses, Buddy's great. And I don't think he's terrible in Sacramento. It's just that the way the roster has been, you've had to ask Buddy to do things you don't want Buddy to do. You don't want Buddy with the ball in his hands making decisions with the ball. You want him catching the ball and shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at some point there probably will be a deal to be made. And if there's not, I don't worry about Buddy, not working hard, not playing and all that. Because the one thing about Buddy is if you put him on the court, someone has to stick to him. You're not leaving him. He does. Right. He still creates space on the floor. If he's going on, if he's curling, if he's coming on the baseline, someone has to tag him or go with him because you can't let him get loose. But I mean, it's one of those things where he's on the team now. If he's not on the team in February, it wouldn't shock me, just because I know there are teams that see him as a guy. I think he's going to be a guy that eventually, if you've got the cap space to absorb him, he could be a difference maker on a good team. And if Monty gets lucky and there's some like disgruntled all-star or like, high level player who's a difference maker, you're going to need that big salary to move in a deal. And Buddy's deal, for as much as he makes, it's a very team friendly deal because it declines in value each year. So as the cap goes up a little, his deal goes down. So really, Vlade hooked up the front office with that one.
So look, Jason, I hear what you're saying. I understand. I don't even think you're necessarily wrong with saying these guys are going to be here opening night. But when you talk about Bagley and Buddy, I mean, how does that dynamic work out here? It feels like neither one of them are here for the long term. Are they just going to literally be on the roster, or are they going to try to be incorporated into the lineup, showcased, even though they're, people believe that they're trying to obviously they literally were shopping Buddy Hield. Feel the same way about Marvin Bagley. How does that dynamic work? Is that any kind of a cloud over this roster, having those two on there because of the uncertainty of what's going on in the future?
I wouldn't consider it a cloud per se, because I don't think either one of them are guys who are going to come in and just ruin your locker room. But I think it's going to be a thing where you at least want to, especially with a guy like Marvin, because you look at the way this team is constructed, they played their best with Harrison at the 4. And even let's just say love Marvin's talent and you want to get him out there, where does he fall in with your timeline? And I think it's too early to give up on Marvin, but I don't know what you do with this crowded front court. And I don't think you just give up on him. I wouldn't give up on him, but again, the roster right now, deals are kind of quiet right now. Teams like this generally at this point go into the season and see what they have before they make a deal. Maybe they might be there opening night. They might be gone in 2 weeks. Remember, the Kings got Rudy Gay, I think, in December. So a lot can change real quick, Yeah. And I think in terms of just moving Marvin, it's more than likely he's part of a package somehow. I don't think they're just going to move him and take back a second round pick or something like that for him. But yeah, I mean, I wish Luke the best with figuring that out, because it was just funny. I remember last year, everyone's going, why won't he play Marvin in the fourth quarter? And now it's like, why is Marvin still here? It's like, it's crazy how things change on a guy. I remember people were adamant, this is crazy, Marvin should be playing. Then it went, oh God, let's get him out of here.
Yeah. They were quick for that one.
Yeah. They did an old pro wrestling heel turn on Marvin. They turned on him so quick. I mean, but I always say fans have the one or two players they don't like, and right now it seems like it's Marvin and it's Buddy. And so, like I said, at this point, I expect them both be in camp. I expect neither one of them want to talk to the media about this, because everyone knows their desire to not necessarily be in Sacramento. Like I said, with Buddy, it was even crazy because Buddy thought he was gone.
Man, we're getting text messages.
Yeah, so I can't imagine, him. But like I said, with both of them, I don't worry about them working hard or anything like that. I don't think they'll come in and just, disrupt anything. And shoot, they let Marvin go home last season. So if it was that big of a problem, let Marvin go home again. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean,
they need to move on from that. If they have that mentality and they think they're doing all that, they need to move on from all that.
If you're going to do that, I agree. You just go ahead. This isn't going to work. But I do believe that the reason why they let him go home in part was because you figured he wasn't going to be back. And then it's like, oh man, he's still here. Hey, when we get to Phoenix, hey Marvin, go ahead and hop on the plane with us. and let us go. let's get rolling. So it's going to be an interesting thing because Marvin, like I said, he's had some of those passive aggressive things on social media, you know, and it's like, it's my Twitter. I'll do what I want. It's like, yeah, it's yours. You'll do what you want, of course, but don't act like people are making something up. Like you don't understand why people are going, why is he doing this?
Right.
You know, so I think
the reaction
even with all that, I don't think it's a distraction for them. It's more or less, they just need a resolution. You know, they just need a resolution in both situations so they can, you know, because I mean, it's clear. I always say the guys that you know Monty likes are De'Aaron because he got an extension. You know, he likes Tyrese because he drafted him. You know, he likes Davion because he drafted him. And then you know he likes the guys he key signed. Outside of that, anything can happen. And then even if he likes you because he signed you, you can still get traded. DeLon was around for a few weeks, helped him out, and then all of a sudden DeLon is gone.
Right.
So anything can happen between now and the season.
On that topic, do you think that means he might not like Luke Walton?
They seem to be buddy to me. I mean, every indication I've gotten, you know, I saw him in Vegas hanging out and everything. I mean, and I've been told by people, you know, they have a good relationship. They talk every day during the season. They're in constant communication. Luke is letting him know what he thinks they need, vice versa. I mean, it seems like it's a good relationship. You know, but then again, you know, anything can change. You know, like I said, they like DeLon right too, and DeLon's a Hawk now. So I mean, things can change quickly, but I think, you know, I haven't had one indication that there's been any type of situation where Monty's not with Luke at this point.
Jason, real quick before you get out, you know, I had to get out on this wrestling weekend. Was this a two-part question? Was this one of the worst weekends for WWE in recent memory? And the second part is, how fast did Vince McMahon wire that money to Brock Lesnar that he was asking for after CM Punk cut his promo on AEW?
I think he wired Brock the money during the promo. I think when he heard that pop, you know, and said, oh, man. Because remember, WWE people have been saying, oh, CM Punk's not that big of a deal. He's only a star because of us. No one's going to care. And then he breaks the Pro Wrestling Tees site. So it's like, oh, okay, we got to do something, you know. And I don't think it's the worst weekend for WWE. I mean, because I mean, if you want to do the big picture, I mean, I think the Owen Hart weekend was worse. You know, you know, all that stuff was worse. But in terms of just, to me, it was clear they threw that thing together at the last. Like, oh my God, hey Becky, you ready?
That was
not really. Can you do it? Get in there. I mean, I think you know people didn't pay their money to see Bianca Belair lose in a TikTok video, basically.
Right.
No one wanted to. That might have been the most deflating title change I've seen in the WWE in a long time. You know, it just people I knew who were there said the whole building took forever to kind of even recover. They were like, did they just really do that?
Yeah.
I think Nikki Bella had a video. They asked her what was her favorite moment. She said, I didn't have a favorite moment because of what happened to Bianca. You know,
that was.
I mean, and I think Seth and Edge did what they could to bring everyone back, and that was a hell of a match. But I mean, that was I mean, how do you ruin Becky's return? That's how you ruin Becky's return.
They ruined Becky's return and ruined Bianca Belair. How you doing?
You know, I mean, that it just seemed like they just, you know, someone said, well, it was a time thing on the show. I'm like, it was a timing thing. Did we need the Miz and Morrison in the ring?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I mean, I don't want to hear it was time, you know, but then you hear all the problems that happened in Allegiant, that, you know, the credit card machine's not working. They gotta give away food and beer. So
they were hometown at your home stadium.
Hey, man! They're just working the kinks out. I just wish when I visited last time, the credit card machines weren't working. I could have got me some free stuff, you know. So hey, you know, I'm pretty sure Mark Davis will make sure that thing works, and you know, when Baltimore gets to town.
Absolutely, Jason. Appreciate you pulling up on us, man. And you can catch them on The Athletic. And soon enough, I keep telling y'all think I'm tripping. You can catch them on J Street Vibes. We're coming back. The return is happening in 2021, 2022. Let's go.
Training camp's coming up soon, like next week, it feels like. So
yeah, man. Jason Jones, appreciate you, Jay.
No problem, man.